Hi, this is Dr. Giobbi, and this is the fourth section of our lecture on the media psychology of neuromarketing. Let's talk about some of the companies that are active in neuromarketing. Nielsen is a big one. Nielsen always reporting on mass media consumption. So they offer services in consumer neuroscience. When time is money, every second counts. Our brains react to marketing in milliseconds. They're so in tune with what's going on around us and feeling that guide of our behavior exists within our subconscious well before we're even aware of them. Since time is of the essence, it is important to pinpoint which aspects of your marketing material are most provocative. Through our comprehensive consumer neuroscience research, we do just that. By studying people at their most fundamental level, their brain waves, so that's EEG, we provide real-time view of subconscious reactions. Now, I don't know what that means, subconscious reactions, but this is very loose language. It's very marketing direct language. You can see this is not the kind of presentation someone who's doing scientific research would necessarily be describing. Something's being sold here. This is marketing. So you can look at their website. SalesBrain. This is real marketing. If we take a look at their website, it's really remarkable. We have two images when we open up the site immediately, and those two images are showing what traditional methods do, and that's just covering the whole brain. And scientific method apparently funnels things into direct areas of the brain. Again, this is marketing. There's nothing here that any responsible neuroscientist would take seriously in this presentation. We have these scientifically capture, scientifically convince, and scientifically close, suggesting there's some sort of way to get people, to trick people into moving beyond volitional choice. And here we have the video from the founder, Patrick Renvois, at TEDx. You can watch this at your convenience. But he goes into talking about neuromarketing, and a lot of his concepts are really not scientifically
sound. I'm a French nerd, and I have two passions in life, so I hope I can communicate this. I am passionate about the brain, and I'm passionate about marketing. So the subject that I'd like to talk to you about today is neuromarketing. I became a neuromarketer 12 years ago. And in neuromarketing, you have neuro, which means the brain, and marketing as in, I'm going to try to sell you something that maybe you don't even need. So I believe it's important for you so that you can protect yourself against people that are trying to sell you something you don't really need. But as you'll see, there is an application to this, which if each and every one of us really understood our reptilian nature, I'm going to talk about the reptilian brain. If each and every one of us could understand,
again, this idea of a reptilian brain is a more pop psychology term.
So what's the definition of
really
neuromarketing?
referring to an evolutionary stage of the brain that's
and it's about using neural metrics,
comparable to the
biometrics,
id, to the biological
psychometrics
drives
to understand our behavior.
of evolutionary psych.
All right, don't worry, you will be able to understand the rest of my talk, because I'm going to make this very clear that it's all about understanding our brains and understanding that maybe there is something that looks like a buy button inside the brain.
Okay, now, so you can take a look at that on your own from the website. So that is the company SalesBrain, and their founder and representative giving a TEDx talk, independently organized TED event. We have MSense, Emotive is its former name, MSense, and they do a great deal of work. We'll see here a rather contemporary-looking electroencephalogram. You see this is very chic. They're very chic designs in their websites. If we click on their website, there's a lot of visual. This is electroencephalogram, very affordable electroencephalogram units. You see they're very chic looking units. We can see what the pricing is for these. $400 or $500, not much money. This isn't very expensive stuff. High resolution, multi-channel, portable EEG. So this is something that any college student could get for research purposes. Or any lab could get it. We look at Aftex. This is another company. These are measuring emotions, and this is for facial recognition, eye tracking, and facial recognition, emotional recognition technology. So if we look here, they measure the scores based on people's facial expressions, smile, attention, expressiveness, provide you with real-time, moment-by-moment tracking, unlocking the emotional intelligence within media, content, products. And
we believe digital content and technology products are made better when they are informed by human emotions. At Affectiva, we quantify emotion to help the world accomplish this goal. We've built the most accurate automated facial coding system that exists today and can discern moment-by-moment emotional state using a webcam. This is the only neuroscience technique that can work online as participants emote in their natural environments. Any face, any place, any interface, in real time. Over the past 3 years, our software has processed more than 1 billion frames of face video of people watching advertisements and entertainment content in over 70 countries. This is the world's largest repository of emotional response to digital media. This research enables optimization, prediction, and evaluation. Optimization of content to maximize moment-by-moment emotional engagement by target population. Prediction of performance indicators such as sales and virality. Evaluation of digital media against normative values by geography and product category. All of this is done in a massively scalable way using our APIs to fuel big data analytics. In the TV and digital advertising world, our emotion data has been used to identify flops and predict at what point viewers will skip. In the movie world, our emotion data has been used to identify the most engaging beats to optimize movie trailers and predict box office earnings. In the entertainment world, our emotion data has been applied to long-format content to quantify comedic value and dramatic engagement, including what happens during commercial pods. In the device world, our SDK enables detection of emotion on platforms such as Google Glass for applications like assistive technology and robotics. All this is done in a massively scalable way using our APIs to fuel big data analytics. How could you use emotion data to build a better product?
So that's an example of this company, Affectiva. We have, this is an example of a neuroimaging technique that is not using computer neuroimaging, but using face tracking, eye tracking, things this to come to quantify emotional response. Obviously, it's open for a lot of polemic critique, how accurate this would be. Just wondering how frequently one makes such exaggerated, affected facial expressions while sitting alone watching a computer is in itself a criticism that I think could be made against this. But nevertheless, it's like a Lazarsfeld dial, if you recall those from early. Martin Lindstrom, this guy is really amazing speaker, amazing book writer. and a very convincing marketer who claims that our experience with products are religious experiences, and we have almost a cult-like affinity with products that we choose. And here we have FKF applied researchers. These are very well-known researchers, a very big company, looking into things, my goodness, a political affiliation and neuroimaging, so many different aspects. If we look at their website, FKF Applied Research, we can look, welcome to FKF Applied Research, Mind of the Green Consumer Sector Study on sale now. There are powerful emotions at play when a consumer is exposed to a green marketing message. Buying green or not buying is much more than a passive act. It provides a cognitive and emotional payoff. Marketing green says something emotionally about your brand and product. We will be conducting the first comprehensive neuro-exploratory on green marketing to gain actionable insights into the complex and emotionally laden mind of the green consumer. Who are we? Joshua Friedman, MD, is a graduate of Yale Medical School, where he trained as National Institutes of Health medical science training. This is the company that did the research that was featured in Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic magazine in 2008. The study on from This Is Your Brain on Ahmadinejad in chapter 1 of the book. So this is a very well-known and one of the foremost of these companies. They give you an area here that you can look at case studies. Understanding human decision-making, we have developed analytical methods that allow us to gain rich insights from the massive amounts of data generated by an fMRI scan. By a fMRI scan, that's interesting. In an fMRI scan over the years, we have found several academic studies to better understand human choice and decision-making. They've funded. That's interesting, to fund academic studies as a private for-profit corporation. Let's see, we have the clients who has participated with we cater our services to clients who are looking to make tremendous transformations out of the way they look for advertising. Our client list cannot be disclosed, but it includes members of the Fortune 500 companies. This is one of the criticisms that Lilienfeld and Sattel make, that something has the, as they say, the whiff of pseudoscience, or it can't be taken too seriously if there's such proprietorial restrictions about sharing information and disclosing things in a transparent way. It's scientifically suspect, of course, because of this. Let's see, the FKF Applied Research. You can look at their information online. Some of the labs. Gerald Zaltman's often called the father of neuromarketing. He's at Harvard Business School. And one of his major findings is that the sketch of an ad network is almost as effective as the full artwork in the sketch. So this means that much of the finished products, the expense that was being put into finishing in detail advertising imagery, was found to be ineffective by him. If we look at his website, his goes, now this is a faculty at a research institution at a business school. It's Harvard Business School. But you see he writes on marketing and neuromarketing. You can see that he has publications, books, Marketing Metaphoria, what deep metaphors reveal about the minds of the consumer, how consumers think, hearing the voices of the market, competitive advantages, writing. He's very active in writing book chapters and articles. So this is the academic side of things. We said we had private for-profit marketing firms that we've been looking at. Now we're looking more at neuroscience research, behavioral, cognitive neuroscience consumer behavioral research. Bright House is controversial. They've been under investigation by some consumer groups. They're at Emory University. They're privatized now, but Bright House is another one of the big consumer research institutions that blurs the line between academic research and for-profit marketing research. The Neuroskeptic. And Neuroskeptic was a private blog that has now been taken over by Discover Magazine. So we'll take a look at that. Here it is in Discover Magazine. So Neuroskeptic has become one of the biggest blogs that attack all the things you read about in Brainwashed about neurobabble, neurocentrism. So neurocentrism is the idea of only considering research that refers back to the nervous system as of having some kind of validity. So that's neurocentrism. Neurobabble is the idea of placing the word neuro before anything, giving it instant legitimation. So neurotheology, neuromarketing, neurophilosophy, neuroaesthetics, neuroliterature, neuromusicology. It's an instant validator. The Neuroskeptic takes a real critical look at any and all neuroscientific research. And is a sort of neuro mythbuster, really scrutinizing the poor science journalism, poor interpretations of data, and pointing out the sometimes often overstated capabilities of the technology and the research methodology. So here is one from most recent March 26, 2016, Your Brain on Math's Educational Neuro Nonsense Revisited. Just to give you an example, earlier this week I was asked on Twitter why I've never blogged about the neuromyths of Jo Boaler. I confessed I'd never heard of her. So I looked her up and learned that Boaler is a professor at Stanford, an expert on teaching of mathematics, and her work in the field has been both influential and controversial. And he goes on to discuss her claims and her research, and then he will give his discussion of it. He's a very well-informed neuroscientist. And so this is a really useful... This is an example of a blog that starts off independently and gets picked up by a major magazine. And you see some of these topics, from observations to data, the changing language of science. Psychologists throw open the file drawer. First, the fact that in science many results remain unpublished. When brainwaves go traveling, what is open debate in science? This has a lot to do with science criticism as well. So in this critique of neuromarketing, we've been introduced to some of the major companies, some of the major research labs, the technology involved, the research methods that are used, from eye tracking to EEG to facial recognition, claims of emotional recognition of expression, PET scans, CAT scans, MRIs, fMRIs. And the book that we're using for this section of our course, Brainwashed, The Seductive Appeal of Mindless Neuroscience, by Sally Satel and Scott Lilienfeld, is really an invaluable book. You can see that although we're only studying the introduction, the first and second chapter, they really, as neuroscientists themselves, they really go on to explain what the limitations and overstatements are of what's really been a fad field that has great potential, great use, but needs to be handled with a great deal of respect. Neuroskeptic is one of these bloggers who is bringing this to our attention. It's having healthful, intelligent discussion about research and not succumbing to just sensationalized journalism that either draws attention to websites, sells publications or books, or services that are really scientifically or even just logically legitimate. So this is hopefully giving you a solid background in this. So we end with these questions. Does it work? According to Sattel and Lilienfeld, expressions of happiness in some Eastern cultures are expressed as a sense of calm or peace, whereas in some Western cultures, happiness means jumping around with joy and excitement. Carmarker explains, so you might get two totally different fMRI results that actually mean the same thing, or you may have two totally different stimuli create the desired effect of profound happiness, but for different reasons. If you get an excited effect in an Eastern market, it may not be a good outcome, even though that was the effect you wanted in a Western market. On the other hand, a sense of peace might be misconstrued as failure. This is just showing the cultural differences that occur in neuroimaging research. Very great study, and received an Ig Nobel award. And I attached the original article, the original journal article to this study on the Blackboard page. But what we have here, we'll just read through, is when a stream of scientists decided to work out the complex mathematics that controlled the shape and movement of a human ponytail, they had not set their sights on fame or glory. On Thursday, however, the British-American team behind the work were celebrated as this year's laureates for the Ig Nobel Prizes in physics. They were honored alongside authors whose research into why you spill coffee when walking around with a cup, to how brain scans can detect brain activity anywhere, even in dead fish, if you use the right statistical tricks, and while leaning to the left makes the Eiffel Tower seem smaller. So this particular article or research that we want to focus on is here. Craig Bennett, a psychologist at the University of California, Santa Barbara, was awarded this year's Neuroscience Prize with colleagues who decided to test out magnetic resonance imaging on dead fish. Bennett and Abigail Baird of Vassar College had previously scanned a pumpkin and a Cornish game hen in a brain scanner, so an Atlantic salmon seemed a reasonable next step. They used standard scanning techniques to build up a picture of a dead salmon's brain and were surprised to find a signal. Bennett said their study was a warning to neuroscientists to be careful when the way they do their work, so that they are not caught out by chance signals when they repeat scans multiple times. So let me explain this to you, because this had a profound effect on neuroscientific research after 2012. So basically, all of the neuroscience research that happened prior to 2012 that utilized these statistical measures and this imaging, this MRI imaging technology, have to be taken with skepticism, and also some of the research was actually recalculated and reworked because of this simple finding that seems silly: scanning dead salmon and finding brain signals. This is how a brain signal occurs in a dead salmon. As we learned in the third part of this lecture series, the neuroimaging is not actually a picture of activity in the brain. It's a symbolic representation of the difference between a baseline image of the brain and a current image of the brain, a current functioning of oxygen in the brain, if you remember the bold and the voxels. So what you're seeing is not an actual brain image, but you're seeing a statistical mathematical representation of a change in oxygen level in a certain area of the brain. Well, it turns out that the mathematical models that they were using to create that difference, that numerical, the number that represent that numerical difference, created a certain effect that could be amplified over if the study was repeated over and over again. If the information, the data was reinstituted into the processing multiple times, it created somewhat like a feedback effect, like when you have a guitar and an amp, and it would amplify this mathematical model into a way that it would actually show false positives. So the results, the false positive was actually an artifact of the statistics, of the mathematical models being used to represent these differences. So this is as I said, the original article is in your on your Blackboard file for the class, and it's turned out to be a very important study in neuroscience that affected how the information was processed since that time. So, in answer, does it work? EEG is only good for sensing the activity of the surface of the brain, that's electroencephalogram. Activity lower down is just too far away from the electrodes on the scalp to get reliable data. Recording neural activity through the skull is like listening to an argument in the apartment below yours by pressing your ear against the floor. You might be able to get to hear some of the muffled voices, maybe even some of the louder details, but you've no hope at all of hearing what's happening in an apartment 5 floors below. So this is a criticism of the use of electroencephalograms, the EEG brainwave studies, which is the predominant way the neuromarketing is done, which leads us to wonder just how precise this neuromarketing is, and how much of it is neurohype. There has been a great amount of kickback against neuromarketing. Here's an article in Slate called "What Are Neuromarketers Really Selling? The Poor Data and Shoddy Logic Behind the Hyped Business Boom." And so some neuroskeptics, neurocritics, neuroscientists who are more interested in thinking about neuroscience than applying it to marketing have come out and criticized, and these articles repeat much of what we discussed in our lecture, in our reading of the book. But there is a polemic move against this use of the neuroscientific research for this kind of stuff. Advanced Research Foundation is one of the organizations that are like consumer watchdogs, challenging the claims of neuromarketers. The Dana Foundation is another one, very important polemics and critics of the entire neuroscience, not just neuromarketing, but the entire neuroscience endeavor. And so here you see all types of resources that you can access to gain more knowledge on exactly what's going on this front. This is to show you that there has been great criticism regarding these endeavors and the interpretations of what they mean. So what are the ethical issues of neuromarketing? Well, why is it so overstated and misrepresented? Neuromarketing and much of neuroscience, public relations. PR is a big one. PR for companies who have something to sell, such as the marketing industry. Neuromarketing industry has something to sell, so they're going to overstate the abilities of this technology and this quote-unquote science. Using the word science, the rhetoric of the word science carries with it an imprimatur that's going to demand and sell. Overzealous academics. This means neuroscientists themselves that are reading more into their research than is probably sober to do. Advertising companies wanting to make a profit, and poor science journalism. the big one, poor science journalism. Look for all of these things. I'd recommend really reading that entire book by Sattel and Lilienfeld. It's essential for anyone going into science today, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, any of the psychology fields, certainly media psychology, if you're going to be having any discussions in that field. This is just such a great book to give you a background on these things.